Can you think of one?
Michael Jai White.
Can I laugh in your face?
Really?
Yes.
I felt like Steven embarrassed himself. Because, I mean, Steven hired me 3 different times himself. Why? If I'm not a good martial artist. I think nobody has a right to have such an inflated ego, especially when people can do what you do.
Can you think of one? Michael Jai White? Can I laugh in your face? Really? Yes. I felt like Steven embarrassed himself. Because, I mean, Steven hired me 3 different times himself. Why, if I'm not a good martial artist? I think nobody has a right to have such an inflated ego, especially when people can do what you do. Michael Jai White is finally giving us the real tea about what went down between him and Steven Seagal. And trust me, this tea is scalding hot. Michael has always been open about his dislike for Steven. In a recent interview, he went off about how Steven is unprofessional, full of himself, and straight up mean. But that's not even the juiciest part.
You want me to do a martial art fight scene with you but I'm fighting on the side of racist white people.
Michael also exposed Steven for being a racist and someone who sees himself as superior to everyone around him. Michael did not hold back, and the fans were here for it. Because the beef between these two, it's the stuff of Hollywood legend. So what exactly did Michael say about Steven? And is it true that Steven fled the US because of a federal case? Also, what's really going on with the racism allegations? Let's break it all down. You want me to do a martial arts fight scene with you, but I'm fighting on the side of racist white people? The beef between Steven Seagal and Michael Jai White goes way back to the early 2000s. But it wasn't about personal drama. It was about Steven's terrible behavior, on and off set. And now, everything's hit a boiling point with Michael speaking up about how Steven nearly ruined his career. In his prime, Steven Seagal was one of Hollywood's most feared action stars.
Hollywood tough guy, in your opinion. You accept it, of course.
When you say tough guy, do you mean martial artist or just tough guy?
I mean, Steven, for real. If he was on the street and there was a situation, you wanted this Hollywood guy by your side because he could defend himself. It's that hard to think of a legit one?
Can you think of one?
Michael Jai White.
Can I laugh in your face?
Really?
Yes.
He built his career on that classic tough guy image. Unfortunately, he took it way too far. Meanwhile, Michael Jai White, he's a real martial artist and tournament fighter, respected by elite combat athletes worldwide. Despite their differences, they worked together multiple times. In fact, Steven personally asked Michael to appear in his movies or help direct them, multiple times. But things took a wild turn in 2012 when Steven laughed in an interview at the idea of Michael being a great fighter. Yep, he literally laughed in his face and said he didn't respect Michael's career. It wasn't that surprising. Steven has a long history of dismissing other fighters and acting like he's the best of them all, but the fact that he was dissing someone he had personally hired before, that was wild. Steven Seagal had an insane run for decades. After moving to Japan to study martial arts, he earned a black belt in Aikido, married into martial arts royalty, and became the first American to teach in an Aikido dojo in Japan. He later moved to LA and continued teaching before breaking into Hollywood in 1988 with Above the Law, the first American movie to feature Aikido. That made him an instant action hero, rubbing shoulders with legends like Stallone and Schwarzenegger. He reached peak fame with Under Siege in 1992, where he played Casey Ryback, a Navy SEAL fighting terrorists on a battleship. It was a box office hit, and a sequel followed in 1995. But then, the rumors started. Steven hosted an episode of Saturday Night Live in 1991, and the experience was a disaster. Saturday Night Live's cast and crew called him the worst host ever. Julia Sweeney later revealed that his sketch ideas were straight up disturbing, like a scene where a woman who had just been assaulted comes to him for therapy, and then he tries to sleep with her. Yikes. Things got worse. He started beefing with other martial artists and action stars, claiming superiority and mocking their skills. But when it came time to prove himself, Steven would always duck out.
Steven Seagal was so horrible on such a scale. It was such a huge scale of terribleness that it wasn't undeniable by anyone who was there. I remember at one point he locked himself in this dressing room because he said, "You're saying Hans and Franz could beat me up, and I'm not coming out of the dressing room until you change the sketch." Like, I mean, it was really legendary, craziness.
Eventually, people in the industry got tired of his ego, and his career began to spiral. By 2001, his movies were flopping one after another. That's when he saw Exit Wounds as his shot at a major comeback. It had all the ingredients: great budget, big stars like DMX and Isaiah Washington, and of course, Steven called in Michael Jai White again. At the time, Michael was highly respected, not just in film, but also in the martial arts world. He was an athlete's athlete. So naturally, you'd expect the set to be smooth, right? Wrong. Steven's behavior on set was a nightmare. He was notorious for hitting stuntmen way harder than needed, sometimes injuring them so badly they had to leave the set. During On Deadly Ground, he hit actor Sven-Ola Thorsen in the throat. Another time, he slammed John Leguizamo against a wall just for laughing. John recalled the moment clearly. Steven walked in and said, "I'm in command. What I say is law." John thought it was a joke, until Steven slammed him so hard he knocked the air out of him. During Exit Wounds, tensions ran high. No one wanted to work with Steven. He hurt stuntmen for real. He had a rep for injuring people and refusing to follow choreography. Even DMX got injured because Steven twisted his arm and dislocated his shoulder. Tom Arnold had beef with him. Crew members had beef with him. Everyone was done with him. To make things worse, a stuntman named Chris Lemon died during filming after a dangerous fall. People say Wardrobe was more concerned about getting his costume back than saving his life. And yet, Steven kept acting like nothing happened. He handed out injuries like candy. One guy's face was split open from cheek to jaw. The final fight scene between Michael Jai White and Steven Seagal was supposed to be the climax. Everyone was hyped. But something wild happened. Michael later revealed that both cast and crew members came to him privately, saying they wanted him to actually knock Steven out during the scene. They were so fed up they wanted Steven humbled on camera. Michael had the skill. Steven didn't stand a chance.
Yeah, that wasn't easy. That was, yeah, I did a movie with him called Executive Decision.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Oh yeah, all three of you saw it. and the first day we get together for rehearsal with the actors and the director, he comes in, "I'm in command. What I say is law. You disagree?" And I started cracking. I was like, I thought he was kidding. We were just hanging out.
Yeah.
And he Aikido'd me against a brick wall. Pow! Knocked all the air out of me. I was like, why? Why?
But Michael took the high road. Why? Because he's a professional, but the scene turned out terrible. Steven had a clause in his contract that no one could hit him for real.
He's never seen anyone aside from Steven Seagal actually really hit stuntmen on set.
He was
so
really
he would actually hit the stuntman.
Broke the guy's face, split his face open from cheekbone to jawbone.
Wow.
I mean, he hurt people for real. And Michael was not about that life.
So Michael wasn't even allowed to go full speed. Then in 2012, Steven went on air and trashed Michael again. At that point, Michael realized Steven was just an insecure man who couldn't stand to see anyone outshine him. Michael said, "Steven hired me 3 different times. Why would he do that if I'm not a good martial artist?" He added, "When you think of martial arts, you think of humility, discipline, and respect. Does that sound like Steven Seagal to you?" Steven's career? It never recovered. These days, he makes low-budget action flicks in Thailand. And why is he really living in Russia now? Well, it might have something to do with whispers of tax evasion and a looming federal case. Steven was granted Russian citizenship by Putin in 2016 after years of public fanboying. He called Putin his brother and started referring to himself as 1,000,000% Russian. Putin awarded him the Order of Friendship and gave him a platform to make propaganda films painting Ukraine as the villain. One of his films, In the Name of Justice, straight up blames Ukrainians for the war. He called them Nazis. It was propaganda, plain and simple. So what's Steven hiding from? Well, Russia doesn't have an extradition treaty with the US, so you do the math. Meanwhile, Michael Jai White has no regrets. He called Steven's acting so bad that anyone's dad could do it. Try doing that with Jean-Claude Van Damme or Scott Adkins. Your dad can't pull off those stunts, but Steven, anyone can do that. The persona is bigger than the actual skills. At some point, Steven did try to patch things up. He apologized to Michael in Thailand during a film shoot, but Michael wasn't buying it. He knew Steven was just covering his own back. Michael said he blamed the interviewer, but let's be real. He said what he said. If I repeated it word for word, he'd be in trouble. At this point, Michael doesn't even need to say much. Steven Seagal keeps exposing himself. Honestly, it's a sad way to go out. But what do you think about the rise and fall of Steven Seagal? Could he have done things differently? Let us know in the comments and check out the next video.